Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Everything Football. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson. Make that Everything Football 62. Uh, Coming into this weekend, I was thinking about different shows and whatnot, all the different things swirling around. But right now, I'm because if you go back to my first broadcast, my show, like I had to explain to this young guy one day that had something to say about one of the shows that I did, and I think it might have been a show on, I don't know, Chuck Howley, John Riggins, or whatever like that. And he said, these old ass guys, something like that. Guys, I said, man, look, I said, dude, I said, if you go back and look at one of my first broadcasts, I deal with a lot of historical aspect of the NFL. That's how I learned it. That's how I still deal with it, and I always go back and check that out. That's that's what you go about doing. So for a lot of new jacks or jokers who are not into that type of stuff, this might not be the show for you. But I always feel compelled to do a show like this that has to do with the historical aspect of the game that I love and grew up on and everything. So I'm always going to do some shows that has to deal with the historical aspect that a lot of people don't even bother to look at, but they'll put these other people up and then be like, oh, I didn't know this and I didn't know that. One of the things is kind of I've not this particular show. It's like the second show I did about there's no such thing as a GOAT quarterback, right? So I talked about that before. And so one of the things about that, when I say that, because we're talking about within the confines of the Super Bowl era, right? So when we're talking about the Super Bowl era, if that's everything is basically starting from 1967, right? That's when they had kind of like the 67 to 66, I believe, when they started having the first Super Bowl, 67, the 67, the New Year aspect, the 68, and then 60. I think it might have been 66 if I'm not mistaken, with the I believe the Kansas City Chiefs and that of the Oakland, and then that of the Oakland Raiders, and then the Kansas City Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers. Super Bowl one, Super Bowl two was the Green Bay Packers again, and that of the Oakland Raiders. But one of the things I keep talking about is because everybody keeps running around talking about, well, Tom Brady has 5 Super Bowls. He's the GOAT. He's this. He's that. Da 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 da. And I've already told you how I feel about that whole GOAT stuff. One of the things I said, this is what you have to look at it from this perspective here. And Tom Brady is still chasing other quarterbacks. And that's what a lot of people don't know when you go from a historical standpoint of view, right? From a historical standpoint of view. One of the winningest quarterbacks in the NFL, right? And I talked briefly on this on like my second broadcast back in early 2017. I easily told everybody, I'm like, look, man, I'm like, the main thing about that situation is that when you start going back and talking about the greatest quarterbacks and greatest this, greatest that, and stuff like that, I've already spoke about that. But the thing that I want everybody to get a hold to get abreast to, you have to look back. Otto Graham had 7 championships. 7 championships. He played 10 years, went to 10 straight championships, and he won 7. Now, the first smarty Marty is going to come out of their mouth. And they're going to start saying things like, "Oh well, he did." Say that's in the old American, the American foot AAC, the All American Football Conference or whatever. I don't care what it was. I really don't. I say it doesn't matter what it was. It was a championship, and I'm gonna tell you why. Why? Because you saying it's say well you got to take that out. Like no, Otto Graham's stats are from 46, right, to 46 to 1955 or whatever it was, 55, 56 or whatever, right? His stats, right? As long as Otto Graham's stats are inside of the Hall of Fame or that's given to him, that means that that stuff counts. You can't have one and then not the other. In other words, in 1946, Otto Graham went 12-0, 47, 12, 1-1, 48, 14-0, 1949, 9, 1-2. He compiled a record in the All-American Football Conference, 47, 2-3. He comes to the NFL. He ends up winning 3 more championships, right? Three more championships. He goes 57, 13-1. His record is 104, 15-4. He has 7 championships. 7. He had 7 championships. Let's go again. People say, well, AFC. Okay, then fine. Then. Let's go to Bart Starr for the Green Bay Packers. Bart Starr, 94, 57, and 6. He has 5 NFL titles and 2 Super Bowl titles. That's 7. Since you don't want to go back that way, let's go to Bart Starr because he played in the 60s, going into that of the 70s. Super Bowl era as well of the great Green Bay Packers, right? That's what he did. If you want, we'll go there. If you want to go to that of Johnny Unitas from 56 to 1973, 4 championships. He has 3 NFL and 1 Super Bowl. 118, 63, and 4 is his record, right? Go to Len Dawson. Len Dawson, 1957 and 1975, 94, 57, and 8. 4 championships, 3 AFL, 3 AFL, and 1 Super Bowl. Right? Now, a lot of people say, man, what is the deal about that? Whatever. Like I said, this is for old heads who's going back. My point is that it's been a lot of winning quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm just pointing this out, that while everybody's talking about Brady has 5 or this, that, and the other, or they had it for the thumb, and he did this, he did that, and he's, I'm like, he's standing alone. I'm like, no, he hasn't won 7 championships. And as long as they keep Otto Graham, as long as they keep Bart Starr, them, because the NFL championship or any championship for that matter counts. It counts, right? It counts. Now, it's not like Canadian football. It doesn't count. They have their own thing up there because then that would say, okay, because if you use that, then they'd say, oh, well, Warren Moon, no, it's like, no, that wasn't going to work. In the NFL or in that of the, with All-American football conference, people say, well, you can't count it. Have to count it. And I'm going to tell you why you have to count it. Because if you go back to, like I said before, and this has been my first or second broadcast, I said I used one of the top 10 greatest wide receivers of all time and one of the top players of all time, as they say, Lance Allworth, who did the majority, he did 90% of his damage in the AFL. His yards were staggering for that time period. Still would be staggering to this day. By the time he got into the NFL, go to the Dallas Cowboys and go to 2 Super Bowls and win 1, he wasn't the receiver he once was, as he was in that of the AFL with the San Diego Chargers. First player from the AFL inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Period. Now, if you just use what he did in the NFL, he wouldn't get in. So obviously that stuff counts. So then you have to count what Otto Graham did from the All-American Football Conference, and regardless of whatever. And then on top of that, it gives it more validity because he comes in and dominates in the NFL. But it's still the same team that just end up they just end up merging and coming in that of the NFL. And then a lot of them old folks over there in the NFL didn't want people in the AFL coming over there. And we see what happened with that and where it ends up merging and stuff like that. Because you had the upset of the Colts, obviously, by the Jets with Joe Namath. And then the next year you would have Kansas City Chiefs beat the Minnesota Vikings, who was favored and stuff. Now, it just showed you a shift of what was getting ready to start happening there of great players that came from out of AFL, which is tons of them. All right, you know what I'm saying? So therefore, you have so everybody said, oh, Bradshaw was the first that won 4 championships. I'm like, no, Johnny Unitas already had 4. Len Dawson won 3 AFL championships and a Super Bowl. That's 4. What are we talking about? Bart Starr he won 7. Because you say talk about the NFL title, or the championship at that time, NFL, or however you want to put it, those things still count. Now it's different now, but like I said, long as it's in the Hall of that player went and his stats say X, Y, and Z, then what you would have to do is take Paul Brown's stats from 46 to 1949, and that record more or less, you have to throw that out the window then. Because it wouldn't count because it's from the All-American Football Conference. But I know it's not taken out. Just like the stats is not taken out from that of someone as of a Bart Starr, or even down to Johnny Unitas or whatever and whatnot. Or because they still played in the Super Bowl era. It was on the downside of the career. However, they played. But you're not going to discard what happened at the NFL. That wouldn't be a right thing to do. So therefore, Brady is still chasing he's still chasing 2 other guys. And if you don't want to use Graham, that's fine. Even though I say, please use Bart Starr at 7 championships. You follow what I'm saying? So that's just something for the historical aspect of it, like that. You can't take a part of it and then do away with it. But that shows sort of kind of the funny style with that of the NFL and what they go about doing. And I found that funny. And just looking at what Otto Graham did, and then all of a sudden they don't show his record, which, like I said, didn't show his record of what it was. They just showed his record from that of the NFL time, from I guess 1950 to 55 or 56 or whatever, which would have been 57, 13 and 1, but he was 47, 2 and 3. But you use all his stats to justify what kind of a great player he was, but then you want to discard the All-American Football Conference, and you can't do that. So that means Brady is still chasing these guys with all these championships, and he's chasing 2 in particular. That'd be Bart Starr and Otto Graham. And if you don't want to use Otto Graham, fine, you have to still use Bart Starr. All right, I'll be back in a minute.